And good evening, everyone. ESS, Empire State Sports presents the Wise Guys Sports Talk Show. With my co-hosts, Joey Ream, Dave Bartlett, myself, Pete Goslaw, and our special guest, Randy Lozier from Section 7, well, man of many hats. We'll get into that momentarily here, but welcome to the show, Randy.
Oh, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So, I'm going to let you do a little bio of yourself. How's that? We'll start that off that way, and then you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go right into it. I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about.
Oh, absolutely. Big sports fan. I was never a phenomenal player, but I always enjoyed the game. I enjoyed studying the game from a coach's point of view, from a referee's point of view. I've coached at all levels, everything from grasshopper all the way to collegiate. I've run numerous organizations, including officials organizations, and Plattsburgh Babe Ruth, which is something that a lot of people don't hear Babe Ruth anymore. You hear a lot about Legion, but you don't hear much about Babe Ruth. And we've been in Clinton County now ever since 1949. So we've been around quite a while. And on the officiating side, I've been officiating since 94, collegiately since 99. So I really see all sides of it, from an administrative point of view, from an official's point of view, and a coach's point of view.
As an official, you're a basketball ref, correct?
Well, it depends if you ask Joey or not. I'm on the court getting paid, but yes, I've been a basketball official since '94, collegiately since '99, and I do Section 7. I'm the current president of our girls association for the last 18 years. I was the girls interpreter, and now I'm the boys interpreter.
Nice. You do any baseball umpiring or anything like that too?
I used to, but when I ended up coaching, I ended up having to give something up. I mean, it's pretty difficult to coach a game and then run out and officiate right after.
Go ahead, Pete.
I know we talked a little bit before we come online tonight about Babe Ruth, the dying breed. Unfortunately, I remember when I was coming up through the ranks, there was Babe Ruth teams in every town.
Absolutely.
So, the same thing with Valley League. When I played Valley League, I was at the tail end of the Valley League. I played for Norfolk Flyers and the Tri-Town Triplets, and a lot of those have dissolved also. So go into a little bit about how much difference you've seen in the last many moons since Babe Ruth it's actually fallen off by the wayside.
Absolutely, and it's very unfortunate, to be honest with you. My first stint with Babe Ruth baseball was back in 1995 with Jeff Benjamin. He asked me to help him be an assistant for a year, and the following year they had 7 teams, then they went to 8 teams, and I took my own team for a couple years. I got into high school coaching and was out of Babe Ruth for about 6-7 years. Back in 2006, I got back into it, and I've been the president since 2007, all the way to presently. And we've seen a fluctuation of 8 teams, and last year we were down to 4 teams, which is a little disheartening. But I try to tell people, when I took over, there wasn't many options. There was Legion and there was Babe Ruth baseball, and pretty much that was your only 2 options. Now we have 14 more teams than when I first started as president in 2007, I think 6 or 7. 14 more teams that are our same age. So for us to go from 8 teams down to 4 teams, it sounds like a drastic reduction, and it is for our league. However, with 14 more teams added, the one positive is that a lot more kids are doing a lot more sports than we originally had. Because if you didn't make one of those 2 teams back in the day, you didn't play during the summer. So seeing more kids participate is absolutely essential.
Now, that was part of my next question, I think, is there a participation issue? And because it seems like over in your area, you should have the numbers. So I'm just trying to.
You would think that. You would think, with serving the Tri-County area with Clinton County, Franklin, and Essex, we still get people come from Malone to come play in our league. We have people, you know, from Plattsburgh, obviously, but Malone is 50 miles. And then south of us, we have a couple people from the Old Forge area. That's a trek. So what we try to do is if we can, we try to match, like if the two kids come from the Old Forge area, kids and parents take turns driving. And, you know, they'll drive up, one set of parents will drive up one day and they'll play a double header and then, you know, they'll go back. And we have a draft system and everything. So it's great socially. I still believe that sports are great, you know, for physical exercise, but it's the friendships and, you know, all the values that you learn in sports. And it just crushes me to see that, you know, some schools are getting rid of sports and the participation numbers are dropping in some areas. I'm very fortunate that I have a great board that supports my crazy ideas at times. And we travel all around, and we also do an in-house league. So it gives people an option.
So do you have anything to do with like adult softball or anything over there? Because I remember when I was in my heydays, I played a lot of ball, and we traveled everywhere. I traveled a lot down in your area, Plattsburgh. Played a lot of tournaments out in St. Lawrence County. Played a lot of tournaments. I played all city in Rochester when I was living down there. So I'm just wondering, you got anything to do with that at all?
Not anymore. About 10, 12 years ago, I umpired for a couple of years during the summer because it was literally a mile and a half from my house. They have lights up. They built another field, and they needed some umpires. So I went down and umpired for a little bit. And, you know, you do 4 games a night. You know, you start at 6:15, you do 6:15, 7:15, 8:15, 9:15. And then a couple of years ago, it got so big that they added a 10:15 game.
Wow.
Yeah, it sounds like the Ambets some nights when they have games right after another here in Malone, which I used to play in that league too many moons ago.
So did I.
Yeah. But it's so I know Joey's probably got questions for you too. So I just wanted to jump right in and talk about the Babe Ruth. I Little League. I don't know if you. I don't know what the Grasshopper League is. That the T-ball or something, or is that Little League, or what is that out there?
Well, we have 2 different leagues for the younger kids. Basically, the first group is Little League, and that's a national organization that's run locally by a great group of folks. And basically, they start everything from 6 years old and up. Then we have the County League. If your kid, you know, doesn't really want to play, but you want them to socialize, the County League is for that. It basically gets them introduction to sports, introduction to other kids. And the Little League is a little bit for, I don't want to use the word advanced, but their skills have developed a little bit, and they have a prior, I guess you can say a prior experience, prior playing experience, and they're a little more advanced in the skill level.
How's the participation level, numbers at that level?
Outstanding. At Little League last year, I believe they had 64 kids that graduated from 12-year-olds. So they had like 60 some odd kids. We picked up almost half those kids. And it doesn't sound like a big number, 50%, but when you look at 6 other teams they could be playing on, and they chose our league, I'm very happy. I'm very, very, very happy with 50% of the Little League kids that graduated to come into Plattsburgh Babe Ruth.
Okay. Go ahead, Joe.
Randy, you know, being over in the Plattsburgh Section 7 area, you know, over here in Section 10, obviously, lacrosse is bigger over here, but the Plattsburgh, especially the Plattsburgh City area, is they've joined Section 10. They were supposed to be over here for their second year in lacrosse, and you know, and I was a baseball guy growing up, and baseball was bigger than lacrosse at our ages. Lacrosse has now passed baseball over here. I don't think there'd be any argument about that, but I don't think it's just lacrosse, because it's not, we don't have an influx of lacrosse schools. Plattsburgh came over here to make us an 8-team division. We've always been 6, 7, 8 teams. So it's not like we have a ton of lacrosse schools.
Oh, you're 100% correct. Saranac Lake, though, is Section 7, but I believe they joined you guys as well.
Yes. Yep.
For that. So, you know, you're talking, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but you have 2 teams in Section 7. We've only got 12 schools to begin with that can compete C level or higher. So when you only have 12 and 2 of them in a matter of 5 years are now have programs of lacrosse, that's actually a pretty big deal. That takes away from the numbers from baseball. I know a couple schools in the area that they're going to try to merge to have another lacrosse team for next year. And if they do, it's possible that some schools may not have JV baseball for 2021.
Well, and obviously all schools have the possibility of mergers. I'm sure that you have, that situation over there. The problem over here is, maybe the smaller Class D schools and St. Regis Falls immediately comes to mind. Colton hasn't had a baseball team now for 7-8 years. So, a lot of the Class D, in fact, we have 12 Class D schools and only 8 of them even bother to go to the playoffs now. I think last year we had 9. So there were 3 Class D schools that didn't even field a baseball team last year. So, and it's not because that their kids are jumping ship and going and merging with somebody else to play lacrosse. It just, there's something about baseball that it's not the way it was when we were growing up, but, I hear the stories that it's too slow paced a game for the nowadays kid and of that. Do you find that? I mean, obviously you don't, because you're around a lot of kids that love the game, but what's going to be to get the kids interested in the sport of baseball again? Because I'm a basketball guy, but my favorite sport to watch, to watch, break down, think about, there's no thinking game more than baseball in my mind.
I agree.
And, I just love the game. I just love to think baseball. So what do you think it's going to take? I don't know what it is. Do you think it's starting them too early? Because we didn't have T-ball when I was growing up. I mean, kids were getting, my son's one of them. We were not forcing, but hey, it's everybody's playing T-ball in kindergarten. Time to sign my son up.
Correct.
I don't know if that was the best thing in the world, because there's just a bunch of kids standing out in the field waiting for a ball to possibly get hit to them,
Well, I think you've hit a couple of points that I agree with. One, back in the day, we didn't have a lot of other options, though, Joey, when you think about it. There wasn't like, back in the day, your parents would bring you down to the field, or you'd ride your bike down to the field to play ball. Nowadays, it's unheard of for kids to get on their bike and go to a field to play baseball. It's unheard of.
Yeah.
Because when they get there, now it used to be like you play pepper. You'd play this, you'd break up into teams. And you know where to find the kids. It wasn't on their cell phone. It was where the 9 bikes were in someone's yard. And that's how you figured out where somebody was. And to answer your question, yes, I do think that it's a little bit of burnout, because you want your best for your kids. And when you start pushing, say, hey, listen, I love this when I was a kid. My kid's going to love it too. And they start playing it at 5 and 6 years old. And now they feel like it's a structured situation, and they're not having fun because they're told what to do. Whereas in the day, you guys got together, and I say you guys because Joey, I mean, you're hitting what, 68, 69 now, and being at that age,
That's the end of this interview.
I'm gonna get rung up before the end of this show. I'm telling you.
Oh,
I've had
boy.
a technical in 15 years. I'm getting one tonight.
during a game, he says nothing. He just gives little jabs. Now it's my turn, to go.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
But you're right, Joey. I do think that there's some burnout, because you hear a lot of people saying to specialize in sports. But some of the biggest name athletes say you should not specialize. You should have a wide variation and a wide range of sports, because it keeps the kids interested. And if you talk from a physical point of view, it's using different muscles. I can tell you, after going to the buffet and from my table to my refrigerator, there's a couple muscles I haven't used during this quarantine. But with kids playing sports, when they only play soccer, their muscle memory is set to a certain skill level, and they don't use certain levels. So when the kid goes into a basketball court, they're going, oh, ow, ooh. And people are going, you just got done playing a full game of soccer and a full season of soccer. What's wrong? It's because they're using different muscles. But burnout is definitely happening with some kids. And I think some parents push too much to want their kid to do what they did because they had a good experience.
So let me ask a question on top of that, though. Do you find that the parents aren't pushing their kids enough to get involved in some of these leagues? Therefore, we don't have the numbers, though, that we could have? I mean, it's kind of
Yeah.
a catch-22 situation where, okay, we have the kids that are devoted to one sport and the parents are driving them there, but there's a lot of parents out there that don't even want to get their kids involved in stuff right now. So I don't know.
Sadly, you're 100% correct, Pete. What it is it's money. Because in the old days, like I said, you would have 2 or 3 fields that you'd ride your bike to, and the cost was almost nothing. One sponsor could pay for your uniforms, and you didn't need any money. Now you're going to tournaments in Albany one weekend, the next weekend you're in Rochester, the following weekend. You think about it. If you have a family of 4 and 2 kids do that, now you're talking about hotels. For a weekend, even if it's just 2 nights of hotel, and say it's a minimum hotel, like the Riom Hotel special, up there in St. Lawrence, you're talking, even if it's $100 a night, $200. Now you try to take a family of 4 out, and how much is that at Applebee's even? Even if you do a McDonald's, you're still talking $30. So a weekend, $600-$700. You do that for 5-6 weekends, you're talking $3,500, $4,000 for a season of baseball.
And Randy, do you think too, you being a basketball guy, and I remember doing AAU, Larry Converse's AAU tournaments for the Lakers, and you were always around officiating and kind of helping out with organizing that stuff. Baseball falls in a trap of the weather's good, and now all the sports are 12-month-a-year sports. Dave and Pete and I have brought this up on 4 or 5 of our shows where basketball season ended for the 3 of us. Basketball season was over. There were no other. There was nothing. You waited till basketball camps in the summer. You went to baseball season. And now baseball's competing against hockey and basketball in the spring, summer soccer in the summer, and obviously lacrosse all summer goes against it too. So that baseball is up against a lot of battles. So I give you a lot of credit for keeping it alive over there, because again, I love the sport of baseball because I think it's the thinking man's game. You need some skills. I don't doubt that at all. But I truly think it's the thinking man's game. So.
But Joey, think about this for a second. The 3 sports you just named: lacrosse, soccer, and basketball. Think about what is for them and what's against them when it comes to baseball. In baseball, if it rains or the field's not in good condition, can you play? No, you can't.
No.
But if in soccer, if you have a bad weather, you wait a half an hour and you put the kids back on the field and they go. In basketball, unless you have a leaky roof, you're going to be able to play that basketball game regardless of what the weather is. And I really do believe that's one of the deterring factors, is that parents and kids spend so much time and money, they invest it, and then they go all the way to Rochester for 5-6 hours. They have $2,000 spent, and guess what? It's 85 and sunny, but last night it downpoured, and they can't play on the field.
Yeah,
So
I never thought of that. Yeah, you're right.
that's one of the things that we try to keep local, because I try to explain to the parents the reason why I don't go to so many tournaments with the younger kids is because I think they lose interest when you drive 5.5-6 hours and you don't get to play, or you only play 1 game and maybe that kid didn't get in. Now you're looking at, I just spent $2,000-$3,000 and my kid didn't even get on the field. But in basketball, you can always find a way to find somebody a little bit of time. Everybody wants more playing time, let's be honest. But at least you get in the game. In baseball, if you have crappy weather and you don't get on the field, you've spent a couple grand and you haven't done a thing.
You're absolutely right. I wouldn't. You don't think of those things. I guess I'm only thinking at the school level.
Sure.
Where you'll make that game up. But yeah, you're right. If you're playing what the version would be of AAU basketball and baseball, you're gone for a weekend and you get terrible weather. You're not making it up. So I get it. Yeah.
Absolutely correct.
Never
and
thought
as far
of
as
that.
the Lakers go, I do have to touch on that since you brought it up. Larry Converse, to me, is one of the gurus in the North Country for basketball. He's coached at St. John's and Seton Catholic, and ever since Seton Catholic opened in 1989, Larry has been the varsity head coach there, and Jim Baker's been the assistant and the JV coach for all 31 seasons. And you don't find that nowadays very often. The Bill Myrnas, you don't see those people in the North Country very much anymore. And it's too easy to find something else to do, or when their kids are done, they move on. And I don't begrudge anybody. I think it's great that if you coach, but Larry had two of his own sons go through the program, and he started it before his last son was even born, and he's continued now. Kevin's 33 or 34, and Larry's still coaching at Seton Catholic. So I do have to say the Lakers are some of the best times that I had, and the friendships I have. And honestly, Joey, that's where you and I actually, first started talking. I actually think you were yelling at me, but either way, we started a conversation for the first time at a Lakers tournament.
Dave and I have had the honor of doing a couple of Larry Converse's games at Potsdam State when they had the 7-10 challenge. So we've done a couple of his games. I've heard nothing but good things about the man, and hopefully we can get him on here. I know he's on Joey's short list of people to get on here, but we got to reach out to him. But classy guy.
Definite class act.
Yeah, he's definitely like you say, the guru of Section 7, like Myrna
Absolutely.
and Howard here and all
Absolutely.
those guys. So we totally understand about Larry.
Larry, one last thing about Larry is that he's now done, and I believe I might get the number wrong because Joey LaFranca is our new sports editor down here in the Press Republican, and they're going to do a story on him and his son Ryan. Ryan coaches at Beatmantown Central for the boys varsity, and they're going to do a little Father's Day special on father-son coaching, and why Ryan got into it. And Ryan's love for the game is obviously from his father. And Larry never pushed it, and he'll tell you that. Larry never pushed basketball on the kids. He gave them the opportunities, and if they took it, great, and if they didn't, that's fine. But all three of their kids have gone through, and Carrie was a coach at Seton Catholic for girls, and Ryan's been the head coach now at Beatmantown for, I would dare say, 14, 15 years.
Well, and Pete, you mentioned doing a couple. You and I did probably one of the best games that you and I ever did was Larry versus Skiffer playoff game 2014 at Maxey Hall. I don't know who the referees were on that game. I assume they were Section 10 back then, but I don't know. Yeah.
Game-ending shot.
It was a game-ending shot, and I remember Pete and I were up we called that game. It was and if I remember right, Seton Catholic was missing one of their studs in that game, and they still won that game.
He was out on injury.
Yep.
Yep.
And it was a hell of a game to call. It was the last second shot, and Pete and I were going nuts. Maybe Pete can find that and repost that one, because that was one of the classic games that him and I ever did. So I remember it.
I got a scorebook, I'm sure, sitting around somewhere too. So
he ripped out Skiffer's heart that night. So, so funny, So let's go from the legend over there in Larry Converse, and we'll go to somebody I just have one tick up, well, maybe below you, in Nate Bilo.
Listen, I'm not sure if you can censor these videos or how this is going to work, but I saw Nate on here, and I said, listen, I got to look at it and see how Nate does, because if Nate does really well, I absolutely cannot go on your show, because Nate Bilo cannot upstand me in any situation whatsoever. So Nate Bilo, you want to talk about crazy? You want to talk about full-fledged basketball gym rat? That is Nate Bilo. Nate Bilo coaches the varsity at NAC, and this year he coached the JV. My assumption was, because nobody can coach with him, but his assumption was that his JV coach actually moved out of the area towards the very end of before the season started, and Nate took over. But he gets done that after a full week, and then he gets in the car and he brings 4th and 5th graders, 6th graders, all the way to Ogdensburg for a tournament. He doesn't have any 4th, 5th, or 6th grade kids that he's coaching at this point in time. So Nate is an absolute true basketball nut. His demeanor on the court would be a 180 from Joey Riome. Joey Riome says, "Excuse me, sir, could you explain that call?" And Nate is on the floor in front of you saying, "Can you stop the game? I want to discuss it now."
Well, I'm here to tell you, I've done a lot of Joey's games. I never heard that "yes, sir" crap come out. I'll be honest with you. Like,
I have a shot caller.
Yeah. He might sugarcoat it when he's over in Section 7 visiting, but I don't know. He doesn't do that here. But anyway,
One last thing about Nate Bilo. Nate actually played for me in Babe Ruth. I won't say what year because it'll give Nate's age away. And, obviously Nate looks just a touch younger than Joey, but Nate actually played for me in Babe Ruth baseball. And then he ended up coaching with me when his stepson at the time Bailey played for me at 15, and Nate ended up coaching with me for the year. So I won a championship with him as a player, and then I won a championship with Nate as my assistant coach. So that was a big honor.
I messaged Nate 20 minutes before we went on the air. He said, "Come on, you got to give me something." And he just said, "Make sure you mention the time he teamed up with the world-class baseball coach." And I didn't know that he met himself. So
yes, so that's great. I'm actually glad that he said that. I'll tell a real quick story, and you talk about why kids get out of sports. No names will be mentioned, but Nate and I are coaching, and a mother comes up to Nate and I after the game and says, "Can I talk to you?" I said, "Sure, absolutely." And Nate goes, "I don't think it's a good idea, Randy." I said, "It's okay. I don't mind. I talk to a lot of people." She said, "I just want to know why my son only played a half a game." And I said, "Well, to be real honest with you," I said, "we have 16 boys in the team." I said, "I asked your son if he'd like to play a different position than a certain position he played. He said no." And I said, "Well, if you don't, it's going to limit your time." And he goes, "That's okay. As long as I get to play second base for the 3 innings, I'm fine." I said, "Okay, no problem." So the next game comes. I offer the same situation. He says, "No, I just want to play second base." I said, "Well, with 16 kids, we only play 12-game schedule, so I'll try to get you 1 full game at second base." So there was a chart on the inside the dugout, and it basically said like he had like game 11, maybe it was, that he was going to play the full game. The mother says, "I just want to let you know that my son has world-class coaches, and this is not a world-class operation." So I nod my head, and Nate is bursting because nobody talks to me like that, he says. Nobody ever talks to Randy Lozier like that. I said, "Well, ma'am, with all due respect," I said, "I'm not a world-class coach." I said, "They scraped the bottom of the barrel for me," and I said, "They tipped the barrel over and got to me." So I said, "I don't know what to tell you." She sends me a message, sends Nate and I a message that night. "If you'd like, please look at this." And it was how to be a world-class baseball coach. He sent a text to us. I've still got that text message screenshot.
Sounds like Nate. Listen, if you can get through this hour without swearing, you actually got it one over on Nate. So
I actually have Joey's shot collar on me tonight, and it's on my leg. So every time I press the button when I want to swear, I stop it.
yeah, I did. I'm sorry, Joey, but I wanted to say one more thing about Nate. I got introduced to Nate through a mutual friend years ago when I was coaching 5th and 6th grade basketball. And they said, "You got to hook up with this guy. He'll travel anywhere for a game."
Absolutely.
Well, I'm going, "Well, Ellenburg's not that far from Salmon River." I said, "We'll see if he wants to come over." So I finally got his number, and I give him a call, and I introduced myself. He says, "Yeah, I've heard about you. You guys want to play?" I didn't even ask him yet. He says, "You guys want to play sometime?" I go, "Yeah, let me know." So he actually, when he walked in the gym, I got to tell this story. I love this story. When he walked in the gym, I thought we got our grades mixed up because I coached the 5th and 6th. And I watch these kids walk in the door. I'm going, "These are midgets or something." I don't know what they are. I mean, I don't like using that word, but I'm looking at them going, "Wait a minute, is there real small over in Ellenburg?" No. He brought his 3rd and 4th grade team to play my 5th and 6th grade team.
Absolutely correct.
Because he was starting his system, and he hadn't quite had enough for a 5th. He might have had 2 players over a 5th grade.
Correct.
But he was starting, and I'll tell you what, they ran with us. We beat them, but I'll tell you what, they ran the hell out of us. But they were good little athletes, and I can see where they get their enthusiasm from because he's full of it. I mean, he's got so much energy, unbelievable.
He's full of it.
I agree, Dave. I'm going to ask you. He got his number from a bathroom wall, is what I'm assuming. That's number 1. Number 2, what is he full of? So, again,
energy. I'll just say energy.
Those 2 things. But as far as that, he will. He doesn't care who he went to a tournament one time, and I won't say where, but he went to a tournament one time, and they were supposed to be 3rd and 4th. and the other team had some 5th and 6th graders. And some parents complained and said, hey, so-and-so has a team of 5th and 6th graders. I know that because the nephew or whatever was on that team. And Nate goes, who cares? It's 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th grade basketball. Who cares? We're here to get better, and we're here to have some fun. Well, we could win a championship. He goes, I'm going to tell you right now, if they give me a trophy, I'll throw it in the garbage on the way out. I'm here to have fun. I'm here to your kids to learn. You're here for something else. You need to leave. And I give him credit for that.
Yeah, he said that during our interview too. It's not all about the championships. It's about the kids. And
Pete, don't get this wrong, but I'm going to tell you straight out. I didn't see that side of Nate in the sectional championship the last couple of years.
well, yeah. I'm sure.
It's a little different. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, I'm sure at that level it's totally different. But when you play with a group of 5th and 6th graders,
It is.
you just want them running the court. You know
You're
what I mean?
absolutely right, and you're 100% correct. He will go to the ends of the earth to play a basketball game. He doesn't care against who. He doesn't care how old they are. He just wants to travel. He wants the kids to get better and have good experiences. And we need more of those people.
Totally agree. And you know, it's funny. I play my annual game against Dermot Morgan and Saranac Lake at North Country. I've had you on there, Randy, at least for one of them.
You have.
And I always use Bilo when you guys come over to shake my hand to start the game. I always open with, "Hey, Nate Bilo tells me I've got the 3 best Section 7 officials I can get today," and it always gets a smile if it's somebody that doesn't know me, and then it just always seems to work. And then here we go, and then I'm hollering and kicking and screaming in 5 minutes, but.
And then 5 minutes in, Dermot, golly gee, how do you know these guys?
That sounds just like.
I was going to ask you how many games you've done of Dermot's, because he's quite the character also.
I've done quite a few of Dermot's games over the years. When he was coaching back in the mid '90s, when I first started getting in, he was coaching then, and then he came back after. There was the Ian Zeron, Don Carlisto. He was on a modified group then. When Ian Zeron went out of the area, I believe Dermot took over. When Timmy Munn was going to do it, and then Timmy Munn had surgery. I don't remember what it was, but he had surgery, and Dermot filled in, and he pulled a Nate Bilo. He coached both the varsity and the JV the same year. That's very difficult. You got to, you're trying to focus on your varsity team. And, your varsity team, you're there to win. Let's be honest. Your varsity team should be there to win. And he's coaching JV. And like I said, told him before, if it's me, see if you can get a couple of those JV games to a different day, or put on a Saturday, why don't you put the varsity game first and the JV game afterwards, just to give your varsity kids your full attention. But I give those guys credit. That's very difficult to do.
I can imagine.
No, and I agree. Yeah, and as for Dermot, good impersonation, by the way. That was pretty good. And you're right. It kills him because he knows as soon as we get up there, within 5 minutes, I got all 3 referees, patting me on the back, shaking my hand, and he can see it. He goes, "Oh, look at this! Riom's got these guys already." But all you got to do is open up with a Bilo conversation, and you're
It's
golden.
an icebreaker for sure. Now, some people may tell you it's not the best icebreaker, but it's definitely an icebreaker.
So that brings me to I wanted to talk about I obviously I've gotten to know Section 7 officials fairly well because of my annual game with Saranac Lake, and I always scrimmage Nate.
Sure.
And I've been in the 7-10. I've done everything I could to make sure my kids are always playing Section 7 because that's who we have to beat.
Absolutely.
And along with Section 2, I'm not having that luck in Section 2. And Pete's done my games when I go down to Section 2. Obviously, now. What's the numbers like in Section 2 when it comes to officials as compared to 7 and 10? Obviously it's a much bigger area, a lot more schools. I'm assuming there's a lot more officials in the Section 2 area than what we have in 7 and 10.
You would think that, and you are right to a certain extent, but how I try to do it by geographic area and the number of schools. So I have a grid system. I'm on a couple state committees, and we have what's called the OCF, which is the Officials Coordinator Federation. And basically what it tells you, it gives you a grid of where officials' boundaries are. And for example, Tupper Lake is technically still in Section 7 boundaries. but everybody but baseball and softball allowed them to have Section 10 officials. Baseball and softball still keeps them. But the reason why I bring that up is because right now we have about 52 basketball officials, and I have been beating down doors. I have been talking to kids that went to Plattsburgh State, went to Clinton Community College and played basketball. They have a love for the game. Let's get those people interested. Let's be honest. The officiating world is very top heavy in older officials. You want to call them experienced officials? You can, but and the body breaks down. You know, every year we get a year older and those kids stay the same age, because every year when the 18-year-olds graduate, another 17-year-old becomes an 18-year-old. And now when my body was 20 and 21, I could run up and down the floor. Well, let's be honest, I didn't run. I waddled up and down. But those kids are staying the same age and we're getting older. And one of my big things when I talk about in my meetings is we're not getting younger. We should be happy to get these new officials in, and we should be happy to teach them the right way to do things. Unfortunately, we have people, and I'm the first one to tell you, we've got people that don't want the younger officials to do well so they can do more games. They can tell you how many championships they've refereed in a row. They want to tell you how many games they did that year. I can play the numbers game with anybody, but it's not right. And if we're doing our association's justice, we're going to get those younger officials and we're going to work them up. And I will give my 2 executive boards huge amounts of credit because they've allowed me to expand on evaluation process. We now have officials from Section 10 that are retired, that are no longer doing it. We have guys from Section 2. I've had a couple NCAA championship game officials come and actually evaluate our officials. And it's not about you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. It's about what did you see? What could you have done to get better? How about if you take a step to your left, a step to your right, and we actually go on the court and we tell them, okay, instead of standing here, stand here, you get a better view, you get a better look. And you know what? For the most part, a bunch of our officials are very receptive and they love the whole process. And I can't be happier by getting some of the younger officials in. So when you talk about Section 2 officials and how many they've got, they do have probably almost three times the amount of us. They got about 130, 140. But with that said, they've got 5 times the schools. They do different things a little differently down there. Their freshmen / modified is a little different than what we do things. And I believe in Section 10, it's still considered modified for you guys if they're not freshmen. But down there, they have more options. The school doesn't really get involved in the quote-unquote modified. They have a modified team, but most municipalities do their own. So there's more games to do at different time frames. They schedule their basketball season right after the high school season ends around like the February break. They start another full season. So these officials can work literally 6 months and not have any missing of games. Whereas up here, if we get snowed out in a night, those games are either going to be made up on another night where you already have a game, and now we're playing, 8 games in one facility. Like at North Country, Joy, when you come up, sometimes we're playing 6 games in a day up there on that same day.
Mm-hmm.
But the officials in Section 2, they're great guys. I know a large amount of them, but they even are saying how great that we're doing with our evaluation module. I guess you want to call it. It's a module.
I don't know how to say this. I'm trying to say it without getting crap thrown on me, but
Go for
Tee
it.
them up, Randy. Tee them up.
one thing that I've coached a lot of games. I've officiated a lot of games officially and unofficially because I was an official back years ago. The one thing that I don't see I guess I don't like is we've lost our mechanics.
Oh,
As far as a game, I got guys. I think what irritates me the most is that I was always told, make sure you go to the table and you report. These guys are reporting from the far corner of the gym, and it irritates the hell out of me. It's
the
just
only thing I'll tell you on that. Well, there's a couple things, Pete. The women's mechanic for high school girls has changed. All you have to do is break the 3-point line and announce who you have for a foul now. And the rationales behind it is they don't want confrontation with coaches. My personal feeling is just the exact opposite. I love the fact in boys basketball, you have to go opposite the table. So you're opposite the coaches every time you make a call. Now, if Joey's a coach and he has a problem with one of the calls, guess what he has to do to get my attention? Randy, what was that? Now the fans see Joey putting his arms up, yelling across the floor at me. He could have said, that's the best call I've ever seen, or he could say, that is horrible. But when fans see the hands up, the kids see the hands up, and they see yelling across, we've lost our communication ability, Pete, and that is part of it. Now, mechanics, you're dead on. We should be we should be stopping at the reporting area in boys and clearly giving signals, and we don't do that. We get lazy, and it's not everybody, but people get lazy. And the reason why is because in college, you can just scream and holler the number over there because 62 people are already putting their head down, keeping score. They know who the foul's on before I even report it. So if you do your job well, you should be able to report and tell them before the game starts. I respectfully ask that we make eye contact tonight so we make sure that we don't have the minimal amount of errors as possible. And if you have any questions, have the timer go ahead and give me a horn, and I'll be more than happy to come over. That's fostering good relations with your table, your timekeeper, your scorekeeper, your shot clock operator, even the game announcer, your athletic trainers. Have good open communications. But you're right. Mechanics are lost because we just get into a flow and we want to get the game over. People want to get the game over too often.
And I wasn't making fun of it or trying to the problem. I broadcast a lot of games.
Sure.
And sometimes I'll go, who the hell was that on?
Yeah.
What was that call?
Yeah.
Because we usually set up directly behind the score table, so we usually get all the info that they're getting.
Sure.
And sometimes I'll go, what the hell was that? So I have to wait and pause, and you know how airtime is when when it's dead airtime. People are wondering, did we lose a signal? What are we doing? And I have to wait for them to put it up on the score up there in order to say, okay, we got a foul. So I guess it's really nothing personal, but it's just that I never knew all these rule changes, especially that girls thing. I really didn't know that all they had to do was break the 3-point line and say, foul.
Break the 3-point line, and you can stay wherever you are. If we're going long, if you have a team control foul, a player control foul, all you have to do is break the 3-point line, announce who you have the foul on, and you can just keep going down the court. In boys, you automatically switch every time. So if you're table side and there's a foul in front or you don't know what's going on, they call the foul and then they run to the other side of the floor all the way over. So now you, as someone who's broadcasting a game, goes, what the hell is he running away for? What's he doing? But in all actuality, that is what they want. It's just two different thought processes. One thought process in the boys is if you switch every single time, then a coach can't say, well, he's called all the fouls and you haven't called any. And in the girls' side, they look at it as if you can foster communication in a positive manner with a coach, you're going to have a better chance of talking to that coach, and there's not going to be as much confrontation throughout the game.
Yeah, and I'm not really complaining because I love broadcasting. I really do. I love it immensely. I wish I could do it professionally and get actually paid for it. But at the same time, where was I going with this? At the same time, it's confusing because if I'm there, I do the main broadcast. Dave or Joey are my secondary, and they're poking their opinion in, and they're doing stats while I'm doing the full book. So I'm always looking down and back and around. So it's tough to figure out all that situation. But I just noticed in the last probably handful of years that the mechanics are really.
You're 100% correct. That's a great pickup.
And we've actually discussed this during broadcasts. And not only like the reporting of the foul, but just in general. Like when they're bringing the ball up the half court. The referee counting off, or when the ball's out of bounds and the ball goes inbounds and they drop their arms. They're like, here's the ball, and then they just sort of follow the play. They're just none of the mechanics are there.
Nobody's chopping.
Yeah.
And Dave, you're 100% correct. Again, another great pickup, Dave, because in boys mechanics, you must chop in every single time that you inbound a ball. So if you're the administrating official and you hand the ball to the thrower in, once you hand the ball, your hand should be going up, and when the ball is legally touched in play, you should be chopping in boys basketball. But in girls, you don't put your hand up. What you do is you start a count, 2, 3, and then when it's touched, you make a fist like a strike call. I'll be honest with you. If some of these score tables that you see in the area, you're sitting down low and they're looking, they're having a hard time. Or there's bleachers set up. So now they're looking around trying to see if they've touched it or they haven't touched it. And you can't tell the difference between this and this.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. So I tell my guys, exaggerate the arm motions a little bit so that the timer can at least get a glimpse if somebody steps in front of them, whether it's popped in or not. And again, you're exactly right. Coming up the floor. In boys basketball, you have to give a visible count. In girls basketball, you use the shot clock now.
Okay.
So if in girls basketball, they're at 30-second for a shot clock. If it gets to 20, you blow the whistle and you say it's a 10-second violation because you don't count, you don't physically count anymore. The only time you count in girls is when the shot clock is off or there's an interrupted dribble. So in other words, the ball's tipped into the backcourt and there's pressure. You can go ahead and give a visible count so you don't take your eyes off the competitive matchup.
Well, I'll be honest with you, Randy. I didn't know half of those changes, to be honest with you, because I always look at a game and going, why are the mechanics so different between games? I guess I'm naive also because I really didn't know all that.
It's not naive by any stretch because here's the deal. They switch the rules and they switch the mechanics so often, I can't keep up. And, a couple of years ago, we talked about this. I went from doing, and again, I'm not patting myself on the back by any stretch. I'm just telling you the different levels. I do a high-level college game the next night for men's, and then the next night I'm doing a modified girls game. And you have to refocus your mind. You have to refocus every night. And George Dyer is one of our very good officials in Section 7. And, he was saying, how did you all, for all these years, how do you, switch gears so quickly? And I said, because listen, every night it's a new game. You have to refocus. Whether you have done a phenomenal job or you did a poor job, always get your partner engaged before a game and talk about the different rules. Because Dave, you're dead on. Why is one night one guy chopping in, the next night they're not? And then Pete's going, hey, listen, we don't have guys doing mechanics. I'm not arguing behind a table. We don't know who the foul was on. And you want to try to get either A, it's a rule mechanic change, or B, it's sloppy. And either way, it's not good if we don't know what we're doing, and we got to be on the same page.
I'll be honest with you, Randy. I'm still, and Dave can attest to this. I am still trying to get used to the 5 foul rule a quarter for girls.
Oh yeah.
I swear, every time we take a break in the quarters, and I'll come out and start the second quarter. It's like, oh, that's a 7th foul. They should be 1-1. Oh no, damn it, this is girls. And
First foul.
Yeah, it's like I still like the old-fashioned way where you get 7. 7 is a 1-and-1 with teams, and 10 is a double bonus. I still do. I like that. And
No, I'm even more old school than that. I think after 5, it's 1-and-1 forever. No automatic 2 shots.
that's a long time.
You got to earn it.
They discuss that. They say don't give any freebies out. If you want the second one, you got to make the first one. And I love the thought process. I really do. And Joey will tell you, when we were doing AAU, I always said I refuse to give free shots. I refuse. So when we do our tournaments, I would always say, okay, listen, here's the deal. On the 5th foul, we're going to go 1-and-1. And people say that causes a little bit more time frame. That's fine. I'd rather go a couple extra minutes and have people safe, number one. And number two, I don't want to give freebies up. I just think giving someone an extra shot for no reason in a bonus situation is crazy. It also comes back down to Joey's talk earlier about strategy and understanding. If you get those guys, I bet you people coach a little bit differently when they know it's going to be a 1-and-1 and people start fouling earlier. Yeah. If they know they're going to get 2 the whole way, they might not foul as quick.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree with that. Yeah.
I think I thought it is and remains. I mean, we're used to it now, but it remains one of the biggest changes that never gets talked about. The 1-and-1 was a huge coaching.
Absolutely.
If you had a smart coach and it was 1-and-1 time, you want to talk about getting the kids some playing time. Hey,
that's it.
I need you to go in and rough somebody up, get them to the foul line a couple times. All right, I'll get you some playing time right now
You're 100%
because
correct.
I want them shooting 1-on-1. Now, I'm assuming they got rid of that because, like you said, at the end of the game, maybe it speeds the game up at the end. But really, how much time are we saving here?
Well, let me tell you this. I will tell you.
Negligible.
Dave just talked about the difference between, the 2 shots and 1-on-1. I will tell you right now, and this is absolute fact. Games for NCAA women's basketball increased an average of 23 minutes by going to quarters and going to the 5 foul rule. 23 minutes was the minimum average time per conference. Some are up to 43 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
43 minutes. We were doing women's basketball games in an hour and 10, hour and 12 minutes. And a lot of our games now are 2 full hours. And what it comes down to is you're talking about the 2 big rule changes, the 1-on-1 versus shooting 2. And the other one is the option to advance at half court. And that I love that, by the way. I'm not gonna lie to you. I do like that at the end of the game. But I am a firm person against getting 2 freebies automatically. I think you should earn them. And Dave, I think you're dead on.
So a couple other questions for you, Randy. Number one, do you prefer the 2-man or 3-man officiating? And the second question is, are you a favor of 4 quarters or 2 halves?
I will answer both questions for you. The first one is I am a huge proponent of 3-man officiating. And I'll tell you how big I am about it. In Section 7, I was the lead negotiator in our contract that signed all the documents and everything for when our officials contract comes up with the section. And we even went so far to do 4 years of 3-man. We split 2 fees, 3 ways. I was not a very popular president in our organization because we quote unquote lost money in the most crucial time of the year. People said, I'm supposed to get excited and I'm going to make less money than I did all year. Listen, if you can't get yourself excited for a playoff game, you're probably not in it for the right reasons to begin with. That's number one. Number two, I did more 3-man games than probably anybody else around. I know you've got a guest coming up who's a pretty good official that's done a lot of games as well. But I really believe that I probably have done the most 3-man games in our area. And I will tell you, if it's done properly and it's taught properly, 3-man is the way to go. Your second question. Go ahead. I'll let you repeat the second question.
Quarters or 2 halves?
Do the halves. Just do the halves. And here's why. When there's a 30-second timeout, what happens? We got a warning horn. Now we got another horn. And Nate Bio has his kid still sitting down. Now you got to go over, you got to pick Nate up, and you got to move Nate and say, Nate, we got to get on the floor. And Nate goes, oh, come on, Randy, I'm just talking to my kids. Well, yeah, okay, Nate, you are, but guess what? The other team has done what they're supposed to. You add an extra 15, 20 seconds every single time. I love the fact that Section 7 and 10, when we did the Larry Cowan challenge, we used to do 2 16-minute halves. If you remember this,
yep.
We did 2 16-minute halves, and I loved it. And I tell you what, the fans liked it. Oh, your clock's wrong, man, sir. Your clock's wrong. No, the clock's not wrong. It's great. And it gets continuous flow. It allows people to get more engaged. And I think that's one of the problems with our sports lately is people aren't engaged enough. And I think when you do that, you're more engaged.
I agree with both of your points. I really do. Sorry, Joey.
No, I was going to say, I've always, if they told us that we were going to go to 2 halves, I'd be all in on that.
Yeah.
All your mind thinking quintessential smart coaches are going to say, no, I want that extra free timeout. Well, you know what? Toss another 30-second timeout in place of it or something.
Absolutely.
But it wouldn't bother me if you went halves. It wouldn't bother me at all. So,
well, Randy, our time is run out. What a quick hour that was.
Yeah.
I bet we could talk another hour, but a lot of information, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Oh, thank you guys. What a great time this was tonight, talking sports, smiling a little bit, getting Joey to laugh a little. Now he said in my contract there was a check. Is that mail?
Yeah.
You could pick it up down in Old Forge, Randy.
On my way.
All right, Randy. Well, thank you very much. For Joey Ream, Dave Bartlett, and Pete Goslaw, myself, and our oh my God, our special guest, Randy Lozier. This has been ESS, Empire State Sports, with the Wise Guy Sports Talk Show. Take care, everybody, and stay safe. Good night.